This is PFF's Rookies and Draft Prospects podcast, and for that reason, on the ticker below, on the live YouTube stream, you will be seeing PFF Mike's latest 2020 NFL Draft Big Board. We're also going to be diving into the Biletnikoff Award finalists or semifinalists. We're going to definitely be diving into that, some good names on that one. Then we'll also be diving into Raise a Glass segment, talking about some of the top prospect performances from the weekend. We'll also be going to our Rolling Rooks segment, talking about the top rookie performances from the week.
Pour one out.
Oh, and I skipped over Pour One Out. Pour One Out, we also have Pour One Out. We're talking about some of those bad prospect performances. Rolling Rooks, top rookies, Blackout, bad rookies, and then we're going to chug a prospect. We're going to be chugging Tua. We're going to be chugging Tua Tagovailoa. Obviously, his season is over at Alabama. It's a good opportunity to talk about him as a prospect in full. Chug it down. All right, let's get right into it. Let's talk about this Biletnikoff Award finalist. I know you're a voter. I think you humble brag.
I am.
In
no
the
big
article.
deal.
I'm
one of I thought it was cool when I got invited, and it turns out there's 1,000 voters.
Sam Monson's a voter, too.
Yeah, they gave it to a few guys here that I'm like, they don't even watch college. What is going on? Like Sam, he doesn't even watch college. So I felt a little. He didn't even know football. But I am a voter. So I voted 10. This was last week to get down to this list of 12, which gave me 10 votes to get down to 12. That one didn't really make sense. But here we are with the 12. So.
Yep, let's go ahead and kick it off with Minnesota, not eligible for this draft, but Minnesota wide receiver Rashad Bateman ended up becoming a semifinalist. What's your take on his game?
Yeah, it kind of overtook Tyler Johnson there. Crazy as a sophomore, Tyler Johnson a senior. I'm really excited to see him going forward. He didn't make, so this next vote, I only get 3. He didn't make the cut of that. He'll have his turn next year, though. I think he'll be fine next year playing with Tanner Morgan there in Minnesota. That's a nice little combo going forward for them.
That's another thing, too. We talked about Bateman on last podcast, or not Bateman, Tanner Morgan on last week's podcast, talking about him as a potential quarterback prospect in the making. He's earned high grades this season. You love that production early. Him going into 2020 with Rashad Bateman coming back to school, I think that is a tandem to bank on for sure. Let's go ahead and move forward here right down the list. Omar Bayless, a guy that not a lot of people have probably heard about, Arkansas State wide receiver. I looked at the numbers today. He ranks inside the top 20 in PFF yards per route run. He also has
he leads the country in yards also.
Oh, he leads the country in yards also, and then also he ranks high in PFF receiving grade. This guy is grading really well at a very small school. When you turn on the tape, what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, they just pump him targets. He's bigger. He's a bigger wide receiver at 6'3", 207, kind of, against the competition he's playing against. Physically dominant. I don't love him as a prospect. Still kind of a late round guy for me. This is being his senior year, his only year, his breakout year. Had only 566 yards a season ago. They've just been pumping him targets, so he has almost twice as many targets as he did all of last year. 106 already there for them. But yeah, he went up against Georgia early in the year. He did play some legit competition. Watched some of him in that game. 7 catches, 54 yards, all kind of underneath stuff. I don't love his ability down the football field.
Okay, well, someone you do love their ability down the football field, and I know he made your final 3 for the votes.
He did.
Jamar Chase of LSU, another underclassman like Rashad Bateman. Both of those guys are going to be at the top of the 2021 NFL Draft Board for receivers. Jamar Chase looks like the best receiver at LSU, and that's above Justin Jefferson, in my opinion. He looks very good, specifically down the football field, has legit NFL speed.
Yeah, that's the big thing is we've talked about how some of Justin Jefferson's production, a little fake. Over the middle, he's beating zone coverage, wide open on crossers, that sort of thing. Can't really fake outside production. Jamar Chase, pretty much solely an outside wide receiver there in the LSU offense, has had to win down the football field. Look at this past week, 227 yards against Ole Miss, 3 touchdowns. I mean, he just went off in that game. All 8 catches go for first downs or touchdowns for him in that one. I just think he is he'll be a special prospect next year. He'll be in that first-round conversation.
Yeah, name scouting, we're definitely diving into this guy. He's also a Biletnikoff semifinalist, Liberty Flames wide receiver Antonio Gandy Golden. And looking at this guy's production, in every game he's played this year, he has a reception of over 25 yards. Yeah. Every game but one. That is pretty incredible. I think when you turn on the tape, 6'4", 220 pounds. But he is a better mover than that size might suggest. I think Gandy Golden, because he plays for Liberty, is flying under the radar. But this guy's pretty legit.
So he doesn't have great speed. He's probably going to run around 4.6, I'd guess. But he has quickness for a guy that's on the bigger end of the spectrum. 4 wide receivers. I really only played one legit, Power 5 school, I believe, this year at Liberty there because they're just, it's their first year as being an FBS team. Syracuse the only one, but I loved his releases in that game. Still went for over 100 yards, 119 yards in that game. I think He can get off press coverage. I think the Senior Bowl is going to be huge for him. He's a guy who that will be big for his evaluation. Those one-on-one drills against actual cornerbacks, how do you look? Do you have that saved? You're still physically dominant against those guys. That'll be big for him. But I think compared to Omar Bayless, who those two are 1 and 2 right now in terms of receiving yards in college football. Bayless, I don't think is a great prospect. I think Gandy Golden, a legit NFL prospect. He actually made our top 100 in the latest PFF draft board, which go check out.
I think you said
88.
I like how you said legit Power 5 competition because they did go against Rutgers. So
yes.
that's another team. But again,
legit.
This past week though, BYU 10 receptions from 18 targets for 168 yards and a touchdown. I think this is tape you need to turn on. If you haven't watched the Liberty yet, I'm sure a lot of people have, but if you haven't, make sure you go turn on the tape and check out Antonio Gandy Golden. Let's go to Isaiah Hodgins. This is one of my favorite prospects to bring up because I think the hype around him is significant. There are people who really do like Isaiah Hodgins as an NFL prospect, largely because of the production, the size, but I think the biggest thing you pull away on the tape with Isaiah Hodgins is he doesn't have that quickness, doesn't have that separation ability you covet at the receiver position, and in contested catch situations, you'd like to even see him be better than what he is right now.
Yeah, he's just not sudden, and you just have to be sudden to win at the NFL level unless you're either incredibly fast or incredibly large. He's neither of those really. So he's just. The biggest stat to me, the most telling stat for him is he only has 11 broken tackles on 163 career catches. Like, he just has not been anything to speak of after the catch. So that to me is the biggest worry. He like another guy who I just think is a lot of his production, and he has good ball skills. Give him that. I don't think he's going to be able to separate the NFL level, which is pretty much a non-starter for us.
Moving forward here, Justin Jefferson, LSU wide receiver, not Jamar Chase. We alluded to it a little bit. I'll say this. When I watch Justin Jefferson, I try and watch his targets every week, hoping that his biggest plays aren't on these deep crossers against zone coverage. But every time it is against those holes in the zone. I want to see him beat one-on-one coverage, and you just rarely see it because he plays the slot so often and runs those routes over the middle against zone. It makes it difficult to really evaluate him in one-on-one situations. His production is legit. I do like his ability after the catch for his size, but again, you compare it to a guy like Jamar Chase or Michael Pittman, who plays outside receiver, Rashad Bateman. It's hard to really compare the two because he really has a lot of his production on those crossing routes against zone.
That is the biggest thing, and that's why when we did put like 18 guys in the preseason draft guide, I didn't put him in because he was an outside wide receiver last year, and I didn't love his ability to beat man coverage. And this year's moves to the slot, production is great. His ball skills, I love. His ability in contest situations is very good, and very good after the catch, like you alluded to. I think he can be a good slot receiver at the NFL level, but a lot of guys can be good slot receivers at the NFL level. You will need those guys. The guys who can win on the outside are the true difference makers once you get to the league, the true special route runners, and we just haven't seen it with Jefferson. We just don't know. I mean, it's one of those things you just don't know. So over 1,000 yards this year, that's great. That's because he has the most accurate quarterback in the country throwing him the ball over the middle there.
Absolutely. Tweeted that out. It's already a rocket ship of a tweet there, man. You just really know social media. If we could, after this podcast, we could just get together and just workshop a couple things, maybe over a cup of coffee. I don't know. Justin Jefferson, I will say this. I think it's important when you look at production. I think there's a ton of draft pundits and fans interested in the draft and look immediately to receiving production. Knowing where it comes from is very important. Is it coming from the slot or is it outside? What's his average depth of target, and how often is he seeing one-on-ones? That is very important when you're evaluating a prospect, and a lot of that you can catch on film, the All-22 even. But again, with Justin Jefferson, you see 1,000-plus yards and you start to get gaga, you got to turn on the tape and see what's going on there. Jerry Jeudy, Alabama. This guy didn't make your top three for the final
top three
Biletnikoff Awards finalists there, but Jerry Jeudy's still a very good wide receiver. He's wide receiver number one on the board.
Yeah, he's still wide receiver number one on the board. So for the Biletnikoff Award, I feel like my criterion was not solely production-based, not solely talent-based. You have to have the combination of both. And Jeudy's production this year just has not quite been up there with some of the other receivers in the class, with some of the guys that did end up making my top three. Had a bit of a drop issue, has flared up on him this year. 6 drops on the year on 70 catchable, and obviously not into concerning territory whatsoever, but in terms of on-field play, it does matter. And in that LSU game, the one loss this year, 3 drops in that one. So that was not great. And he just hasn't had the same elite level, only 867 yards so far on the season for him. Yards per route is down a little bit from what we saw last year. I'm not it's not concerning to me. I mean, that's still very, very good production. So I like I said, you didn't make the top 3 just because there's it's a special wide receiver class. You got to be doing something different to make the top 3 in this.
I want to go back to Ja'Marr Chase just a little bit here, because in the live chat on PFF's live YouTube channel, you got Heath Shaver calling Ja'Marr Chase High-Speed Chase. Big fan of that nickname. That is fire. Good
LSU's
stuff.
got a good nickname base going there.
Heath. Let's go to the guy that's number 1 on your Biletnikoff award list here. You're voting here. CeeDee Lamb of Oklahoma. The guy is an absolute monster. Great production, great NFL prospect. Like you said, meets both those criterion for you. CeeDee Lamb, very legit.
Yeah, so he's leading the country in yards per route right now. Has 18 broken tackles on 44 catches. That is a crazy rate. The difference between him and second place in yards per route is the difference between second place and 6th place in yards per route. So he is way ahead of everyone else in terms of his efficiency numbers this year. 155.9 passer rating when targeted. The stats, you can go on and on and on. He has been dominant on the football field. Unfortunate they didn't get to play this past week against Baylor. Would have liked to have seen him play all, you want a guy to play every single game if he's going to win that award at the end of the year. But this guy, my number 1 still, if he comes back and produces down the stretch, he'll be, I hope, the winner of this award. He's just been that good and is the 6th overall player on PFF's draft board.
Let's go to number 2 on your Biletnikoff award votes here. Michael Pittman Jr. of USC, 6'4", 220 pounds, but does not move like that. He's very quick, very sudden, as opposed to some of the other bigger receivers in this class, and he can create separation, has sure hands, only 2 drops on the year, some of the surest hands in college football, and also great in contested catch situations, great ball charting, ball plays, ball tracking is what I'm looking for.
There you go. Yeah, ball something there. Michael Pittman, though, playing and having an outstanding year in a deep USC receiving core. Man, I'm messing up here. Jeez,
Michael Pittman
just throw
Jr.
it to me. Just let me talk. All right, let's go. Michael Pittman Jr., the 2 drops, and one of them was this past week against Cal, where it was like, we called it a drop because, yes, it did hit both of his hands, but it was a guy who was hanging all over him. Realistically, he probably shouldn't have even got to the ball in the first place. It was a good play to get there, but back-to-back weeks now with 10-plus catches, 140-plus yards. He is just so good on that intermediate route tree, and then in those downfield situations, his body control and his hands, about as good as it gets in the country. So it's 6'4", 220. He is what if you're going to draft a big receiver who's not going to separate at a super high level down the football field, this is what you want them to look like. You want them to have elite ball skills. You want them to have elite hands to where, similar to a Michael Thomas, I'm not calling him Michael Thomas, but Michael Thomas does not, run the go route in the deep post at a high level. He is not Tyreek Hill in that regard. He's not Antonio Brown in that regard. But on the any sort of intermediate underneath route, he's going to win. And if a guy is behind him at the catch point, he's still going to catch that ball. He is like that because he is elite at all those underneath and intermediate traits that you need. So I think that is what you should be looking for if that's the type of receiver you want in your offense. Michael Pittman is that guy. 53 on our big board right now, probably still moving up with his performance this year.
Riser. Let's go to James Prochet of SMU. That's another receiver that's had great production for SMU. In addition to Reggie Robertson, he's definitely a very crafty receiver, good route runner. Talk to me about him.
Yeah, we've talked about him a bunch, I think, on this one, on this podcast about he was a microbrew, I think, early on in the year. We've highlighted him on Raise a Glass segment a handful of times. Just incredibly productive. And I keep going back to the way he attacks the football. For a 5'11", 190-pound guy, he puts his body on the line, going over the middle of the football field. Not going to be another guy who's probably going to be a slot at the next level, but if you're going to be a slot, you have to be a guy reliable. You have to be a guy that your quarterback can rely on. Only 2 drops on 90 catchable passes this year. Only 8 drops on 288 catchable for his entire career. The way he attacks football is very good. He is never going to be an elite type of, not another guy who's not going to separate at elite level down the football field, but he does the little things well and will be a quarterback favorite at the next level.
There you go. I mean, that's a good thing, too. With slot receivers, I think it's important to bring up, you need to be sure-handed, and that includes both in open situations and in contested catches. I want you to be able to catch the ball in traffic, because a lot of times in the slot, maybe you're not going up against one-on-one situations, but you are a lot of the times in traffic, catching balls through contact. Prochet does a great job of that. Let's bring up an absolute burner here. Alabama receiver Devontae Smith. This guy is an absolute lightning bolt at the release point. I really do like his release. He's great on the deep routes. I do like Devontae Smith. This is a guy that I think could be very good in the NFL, and he's not getting enough hype, in my opinion.
Yeah, coming into the year, I was like, I didn't really see it. A lot of he was kind of everyone's like, oh, this Alabama wide receiver core, 3 first-rounders. And I was like, Devontae Smith, I can get on board with Ruggs and Judy. Devontae Smith, I just didn't see whatsoever. I was just like, I don't think so. He looks like he's 160 pounds out there. He's skinny as can be, a really straight line sort of player, sort of wide receiver. But I think this year has really impressed me with his after the catch ability. It has really impressed me with his ability at the catch point as well. I think a lot of speed wide receivers in the NFL, a lot of things that separates the good deep threats from the just fast guys who can't play a lick of football is the way they track the football down the field, the way they attack it. He attacks it the right way. He has had multiple times down the football field where he has, made contested catches over cornerbacks. We saw what he did to Derek Stingley in that LSU game. He's definitely sort of changed my opinion on him fairly drastically over the course of this year. Made our top 100. I'm still not on board with him as a complete wide receiver by any means. He is basically screen or deep ball sort of guy at this point for Alabama. But it's a good start. I mean, if you're going to win down the football field, and that's where Smith's winning. And
screen or deep ball, it's largely because his route running still lacks polish. Yeah. I still think he can improve as a route runner.
And I think that's why you see 215 yards, 274 yards, and then games of 26, 18. You see the inconsistency because it's big play or nothing.
Yep, and I think that speaks to him not being a complete receiver yet. Maybe he returns to school. I think there is enough hype around him that he might declare for the 2020 NFL Draft. But if he returns to school and is the clear-cut number 1 at Alabama, I think there's opportunity for him to even raise his draft stock further.
Yeah, we'll touch on that when we talk about Henry Ruggs a little bit later.
Okay. Well, a little teaser then. Yeah. We'll do a little teaser. Let's go to last guy on the Biletnikoff semifinalist list, Sage Surratt of Wake Forest. He did injure his shoulder. He won't be in for the rest of the year. I think that's a big reason why you're not voting him in.
Exactly.
But injury aside, talk to me about Surratt as a prospect.
Yeah, Surratt was healthy, and he played this past week against Clemson and maybe showed out. We could have talked. Surratt, we could have put you in the top 3.
It would have been tough for him to show out with how bad Jamie Newman is.
But well, I mean, it would have helped. That would have definitely helped because Jamie Newman didn't have much of a chance, and another guy we'll touch on a little later here. But yeah, Surratt, another guy who very much flown up draft boards this year with his performance. Still, even though he missed the Clemson game, still has the most contested catches in the country this year. I think he's gone 18 of 30, which is a really, really, really good rate as well. Physical, not fast. He might run the 4.7s. Like he's very not fast. But I think he can win with his physicality. He knows how to use his size to win when a guy's on his hip. He's not going to shake a guy, but he's not going to let a smaller cornerback stick with him because he is going to dip that shoulder and stick his foot into the opposing wide receiver, use that leverage, and then push off that guy to create that separation. That's what he's already good at. That he already has that innate sort of ability. That's difficult to teach a guy how to utilize their leverage. So I do think Surratt is another bigger body wide receiver that knows how to use that size and can actually play. And Austin's set an alarm for right in the middle of the podcast, which I can't fathom why.
I don't know why that's going on. But, yeah, I agree with you on Sage Surratt. Let's move forward to the Raise the Glass segment where we're going to be discussing. Let's start with Michael Pittman Jr. of USC. We already talked about
to recap. 1 was CeeDee Lamb. 2 was Michael Pittman. 3 was Jamar Chase on my list.
On your vote.
So, and that drops the next week, I think. 25th? Something like that. So, yeah.
So you go ahead and let's move to the Raise the Glass segment. Michael Pittman Jr., we talked about him as a Biletnikoff finalist, but this past week turned in an absolute stunning performance against California.
Yeah, like I said, the one drop, but it was a drop that he basically was getting all over. It could have been flagged for PI. Had the touchdown where it was just another jump ball where he showed that he is more physically dominant than the corners he's going up against. He has better ball skills. He has incredible body control. It was a little toe tap on the sideline there for him, and just continuously open in the intermediate range for that USC offense. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown. You have Tyler Vaughns, 2 guys who will be drafted in the NFL. Amon-Ra St. Brown probably, possibly in the first round next year, but it's Michael Pittman who continually produces at the highest level of that receiving core with a less than stellar, backup quarterback situation there for USC.
Absolutely. 180 yards in this game and a touchdown. But I will say this is one of his better games of the year. But if you are going to watch a game and absolutely fall in love with him, that Utah game. Go watch that Utah game. He hauled in 10 of 11 receptions for
against Utah, best defense they faced all year, too.
Exactly. Good cornerbacks. They have a couple good cornerbacks there at Utah.
And good safety. So,
232 yards, a touchdown in that game. I think that one is a very good game to watch if you are trying to fall in love with Michael Pittman. I'm sure everyone is. Let's go to the next guy we're raising the glass for. South Carolina defense interior, Javon Kinlaw. 9 total pressures against Texas A&M. And this is what I saw with Kinlaw. He does a ton of it at nose. He is bullying centers at nose, and it's so hard. We've seen here at PFF, it's so hard as an interior pass rusher to win from that zero technique alignment. I mean, Ed Oliver struggled to do that at Houston. He's doing it at South Carolina. Very impressive game for him.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that he's doing it at a position that realistically not going to be his best position in the NFL. He's going to be probably a 3 technique, 4 technique. He's going to be guard or over tackle sort of guy in the NFL at 6'6". It's just tough to hold up double teams in the nose. That's not where we're going to be playing. So doing it at a different position is always encouraging. It shows a diverse skill set. It shows that you're not sort of a one-trick pony. I do think Javon Kinlaw, he's going to be able to rush the passer in the NFL. He has everything, every sort of trait and the production to match. So yeah, we were excited about his prospects heading into the year, and I think he's firmly put his stamp on that first round. I wouldn't be surprised if he makes his way into the top 10 if he tests well out in Indy.
Wow, that's high praise for Javon Kinlaw, but well-deserved. Again, that Texas A&M game, he put some dudes in body bags in that game. I was very impressed with how dominant, and that's what we're looking for interior pass rush, too. It's more than the pressure count. It's more than that. It's how you win. It's how you win as a pass rusher. Is it early in the snap? From what technique? Is stunting creating pressure? Are you winning these one-on-ones? There's a lot that goes into those pressure numbers. 9 pressure sounds great, but when you dive into the film, he also looked very good on that. Let's go to Joe Burrow. LSU, an absolute rocket, the clear-cut favorite for the number 1 overall pick to the hometown Cincinnati Bengals. This guy has been playing at a completely different level than what we've seen here at PFF, earning very high grades, great on NFL throws, those throws in tight windows down the football field. Joe Burrow, we really can't say enough good things about this guy.
His 5th straight game where he's completed over 3/4 of his passes, over 75% of his passes for 5 straight games. That doesn't happen for 1 straight game for a lot of quarterbacks in college football. It's every single week for him. The stat that I tweeted out earlier that is one of the most absurd stats to basically describe Joe Burrow is on throws that aren't screens. His completion percentage this year is 77.2%. The highest we've ever seen before, 6 years doing this. So the previous 5 years, since 2014, is 69.1. And that was in Washington State's offense, Gardner Minshew last year, where they're really not throwing
absolute baller.
They're not throwing the football down the football field nearly as much as LSU is there. So he is night and day. Basically, the difference between Burrow and the best we've ever seen before is like the difference between number 2 and number 50 usually in any given season. So he is just on another level. This week against Ole Miss, 4 big-time throws, 4 more, only 1 turnover-worthy play. He's just I don't think there's a question about it at this point that he's a number 1 overall pick.
And in looking at that list you tweeted out here, Gardner Minshew at number 2, and then you have Luke Falk's 2016 season and Luke Falk's 2015 season at 3 and 4. It really speaks to that Washington State offense that doesn't throw down the football field a ton. And I think Baker Mayfield's the only guy even close to him in a kind of a different offense there. Joe Burrow just absolutely lighting college football on fire, above average Joe. This guy is legit number 1 overall pick. Let's go to Iowa edge defender A.J. Epinesa. This game was incredible. Goes against the Minnesota left tackle and absolutely ruins him. I'll admit, I wanted to see Epinesa go against that 400-pound guy that the broadcast was like, a lion is this size. Yeah. He did, 4 players on Penn State don't even add up to it. I wanted to see him bull rush that guy because he's a monster, but he went against the left tackle at Minnesota and absolutely ruined him. They also played him inside where he won some pass rush snaps there as well. This was such a dominant game for him. I think the game to watch for him right now.
Yeah, I don't want to say that I'm the reason why A.J. Epinesa is doing this, but after I called him out for his lackluster performance to start the year, not called him out. I was like, where's the A.J. Epinesa we thought we'd see? That was in week 6 after the Michigan game. He has been the highest graded edge defender in terms of pass rushing in the country, or Power 5 edge defender in the country. So you're welcome, Iowa fans. I did it. I was the one. I was the motivation behind his performance here. No, he's good. I mean, he's basically just reminding everyone that, oh, yeah, I still have it. Like, I have it. Sorry it took me this long, but yeah, I'm back. So
he looked so good in this game. I mean, it was his highest graded game of the year, and he's coming off what was his highest graded game from a pass rushing standpoint against Wisconsin, 88.9. This past week against Minnesota, a 91.2 pass rush grade, 9 total pressures. I'm telling you right now, it was dominant tape, very dominant tape. Let's move forward to Clemson cornerback A.J. Terrell. I watched his key plays and watched his targets, and this one looked great in press coverage, good arms, and then on the pick, what I was really impressed with on the pick, intercepts the ball, gets good from press coverage, runs with the receiver down the field, and then after the pick, a little stiff arm on the receiver, head fake up to force a missed tackle. When you're making those plays after the catch, I mean, that's a little checkbox I have on my list here. But A.J. Terrell looked very good in this game.
Dude, he's kind of flown under the radar because he hasn't put up big stats or anything heading into this week. They've really just been untested in that Clemson defense, and they really kind of don't really play a great schedule there in the ACC. But yeah, against Wake, Scotty Washington, only 1 of 3 targets, 5 yards. Had that pick that was just, perfectly played how you play a go ball from press coverage. Just press. Once he realized he was on top of the wide receiver, turns around, locates the ball, jumps up, high points, it gets it. He just has the height, length, movement skills to be a top-tier cornerback in the NFL. Little inconsistent. I think he's been more consistent this year. But I go back to the national championship game last year. Yes, he had the pick 6 and a nice pass breakup, but he had one play where he ran stride for stride with Devontae Smith on a double move where it was just, Devontae Smith, elite level athlete, and he doesn't even, he never had more than about a foot of separation on it. That was just beautiful. I do think A.J. Terrell, playing his way into the first-round conversation at this point, has kind of started the season right outside the top 30 for us. Could be making his way in soon. And he'll be getting tested down the stretch. That'll be nice to see him in the playoff if it goes against LSU, if he goes against Ohio State, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. A guy that we didn't put on the final notes here, but I got to bring up this interception. He had Hamza Nasruddin against the Florida State safety, number 23. Going against Alabama State, he gets this interception. It plays the ball really well, so it's an out route. He jumps, and then it goes into a scramble drill. The guy tries to wheel up the right sideline. Nasruddin, great interception, looks back to the ball. Then after it, jukes the intended receiver, and then there's this tight end that comes up. Alabama State tight end, number 10.
You love this guy.
Listed at 6'2", 232 pounds, but he looks like 6'2", 250. An absolute unit out there, running very unathletically. Jukes him twice, and then ends up taking it back to the house with a final juke on number 71, their offensive tackle there, and he doesn't even touch him. This was a great pick 6, great ball skills, great play after the catch there. I'm impressed with Hamza.
Hamza's 89th on our draft board.
And in this game, he earned his highest overall grade of the year, 84.6, largely because of that pick 6. That was pretty incredible. But I encourage you to go watch that highlight. It was fantastic to watch.
He's kind of a jumbo safety, could move to linebacker.
And they play him up a ton. This guy comes and ruins in run defense. He was just absolutely stacking some of these guys at Alabama State. It was a fun game to watch for sure.
They kind of, what did they do with him last year? He didn't grade out great for us last year because they would use him almost as a matchup weapon. They'd throw him on the goal, like they threw him on the goal line last year against T. Higgins in one-on-one coverage, and it's just because they're both big, and it's like that's not just because Hamza's 6'4" doesn't necessarily mean he can stick with T. Higgins. Like he's still a safety. 6'4", 215. I think he might actually end up being a linebacker at the next level. I like his versatility though and what he's shown this year.
Let's go to Georgia edge defender Malik Herring. This guy had a great game against Prince Tega against Auburn, and I think when I wrote in my notes here, I think this speaks to more of what Prince is able to do than what Malik's able to do. Because if you look at Malik, in Georgia, those edge defenders play inside a ton. They play run fits first, and I think he is not a great pass rusher by any means, but he beats Prince quick twice, and then he also has a nice outside move for a pressure in this game as well. Malik Herring, this is one of the better games as a pass rusher we've seen from him.
Yeah, I had higher hopes for him heading into this year after he had a 78.4 pass rushing grade as a sophomore back in 2018. It really hasn't even played that much for him. Didn't even have over 30 snaps in the game until this past week against Auburn. They had a 90.0 pass rushing grade against Auburn. But yeah, he's just not super athletic, Malik Herring. He wins with his hands, wins with technique, and has some versatility in terms of at 6'3", 280, playing outside and kicking inside. But yeah, he's another guy who good week for him going up against Tagovailoa, but he's probably coming back to school.
I mean, he reminds me a lot of Jonathan Ledbetter, the other Georgia edge defender. Now he's playing DI in the NFL, 6'4", 280 pounds. He's a guy that wasn't a great pass rusher, but played well against the run. I think they're very similar players, very similar prospects. That's what Georgia looks for, though. I interviewed Ledbetter before the draft last year, and he was telling me that Georgia just sells out to stop the run. In practices, they have this, like, I don't remember what he called it, but it was like something with blood involved, like blood practice, where they just play run defense the entire practice. That's what breeds the Malik Herrings.
That sounds like
the
PFF like
nightmare.
That's what like George and Eric. That's how they like. Sounds like they're nightmares. Yeah,
absolutely. But yeah, Malik Herring, good stuff there against Prince Tagovailoa. We'll talk about Prince a little bit later. Tristan Wirfs of Iowa, 0 pressures allowed against Carter Coughlin, Minnesota. He continues to play at a very high level.
Yeah, Tristan Wirfs. Jeez, I'm still on Malik Herring. Tristan Wirfs, though, didn't allow a single pressure. Now, he didn't go up against Carter Coughlin as much as I would have hoped. They kind of like threw Coughlin around and ran a ton of stunts and whatnot. It wasn't great in terms of scouting, but didn't allow a single pressure. Didn't even allow like guy within like a few feet of the QB, to be honest. Like there was just no one even coming close to testing him in this game. So another nice solid outing for a top 10 player on our draft board there in Tristan Wirfs.
There you go. Let's go to the next segment here. Get a little bit negative here. Pour one out. This is where we talk about some of the bad prospect performances from the weekend. Let's start with Auburn tackle. Prince Tagovailoa did not have a good day against not a bad pass rusher, but not a good one in Malik Herring. This was a huge concern for me.
Yeah, he has dropped all the way down to 96th on our draft board. He might drop out of the top 100 here very soon just because the foot speed, the agility is a very big question mark, and the fact that when he does not land that first punch and not, sort of win on contact, his feet stall, and he just has no recoverability. Just not any sort of ability to win ugly. It's either he wins handily or he loses pretty handily. So that's the worrisome thing to me about Tagovailoa. And yeah, like I said, I think he might be dropping out of the top 100 here soon for us. Just not a great senior year. I thought with not having played offensive tackle that we were just seeing like the budding of a guy who was going to be better. Like I thought we were just seeing a guy just figuring it out last year and still grading out well. Has not been the case.
On the Thursday podcast, we looked at the 34.5 point spread for Clemson Wake Forest, and we're like, wow, that seems crazy. Jamie Newman's playing well. They should be able to cover that no problem.
Well, we don't know what the hell we're talking about.
Jamie Newman turned in an absolutely ugly
the Wake Forest team as a whole.
Without Sage Surratt, this guy was lost. It was not great. I mean, he made bad pass after bad pass. It was not a good performance for Jamie Newman, a guy we've hyped up on the podcast. He goes against legit competition in Clemson and legitimately looks like a different player.
I remember before the Notre Dame-Alabama national championship game, I guess Everett Golson was in the locker room. One of the players, Austin Collins, was actually on that team. I remember him saying that he's never seen a guy look more nervous than Everett Golson in the locker room before Alabama, and he came out and played like just ass right away in the first half. That's what Jamie Newman looked like right out the gate. Is he just looked nervous. His very first pass was a designed fake screen with like a wheel route, and the wheel route was open right away. Like the design where it was supposed to go was wide open, and he's about almost a full second late to it and throws a pick. Like that was just, he was so late to get to his guy right off the bat, and it just was quicksand from there, just nothing going right for him. Couldn't find an open receiver to save his life. There were some opportunities to be made, couldn't make them. Awful for him. 6 of 14, 41 yards and 2 picks. It was just, it was about as bad as it gets.
We got to stay with Wake Forest. They got a couple guys here. Isang Bassi, the safety for them, did not have a good grade, allowed a touchdown in this game. And this was an opportunity. I mean, it was an opportunity for all Wake Forest prospects to really, like, you know what, this is my time to throw myself onto the map and solidify myself as a top prospect. Bassi struggled in this game like Jamie Newman did and like another player we'll bring up later. Yeah,
Bassi, 53.8 grade. And, the other one, just bringing up, Carlos Basham was the one that was more. Bassi we always saw as kind of a late rounder, so it was a proving ground for him. But we were high on Basham. I thought he was a possible first rounder. But when he goes up, we mentioned on that Thursday pod, we're saying, Jackson Carman, you're not going to be able to bull rush him. Mm-hmm. That's a big-ass dude at left tackle there for Clemson. You're going to have some sort of plan B against that guy, some sort of counter. There was none. One pressure, 28 pass rushing snaps for Basham. So that's worrisome going into the NFL.
And you hate to at any point in anything pour a ton of weight into small sample sizes. But with edge defenders and even receiver cornerback battles, it's important to look at these matchups against good, legit competition and extrapolate a ton of value from it, because if Basham can't do it against Carmen, it's going to be very hard for him to do it against NFL tackles at the next level.
Well, yeah, I think it's when it's against good competition and it's such a drastic change versus against bad competition. When you're dominating his grade against Utah State, highest of the year, 86.1. Yeah, when you dominate that, but you go up against a real guy in Jackson Carman who's probably going to be a top few round prospect in the coming years, that's concerning. Like that those are the guys that you're going to be playing against. If you can't do it now, what are the chances you're going to be able to do it later?
There you go. Another guy, and I'm surprised to see this on the list here, Henry Ruggs of Alabama. But again, I think it speaks to, he had a great start to the season, a ton of hype, absolute burner, everyone praising his speed, but has not played well down the stretch, a guy we're going to pour one out for.
Well, yeah, he's just 268 yards in his last 6 games, and I kind of just wanted to bring up the conversation of, are all 3 Alabama wide receivers, all juniors, are they all going to come out? Like, one guy could return and you're the guy next
That's
year.
what I said about Devontae Smith.
You come back, but Devontae Smith's already over 1,000 yards. Like, I thought it was going to be him heading into this year, but all of a sudden he's probably, I'm not sure if you're 1,000 yards Alabama, I'm not sure how much you're going to raise your draft stock going into 2020. Ruggs at only 618 yards this year, only 729 yards last year. Never had high. It's never been elite level sort of yard production. Comes back next year, you're the guy in that offense. You're the one getting those screens. You're the one getting the plays featured for you. Is he the one that comes back? I think there's a legit conversation or a legit question to be asked if Henry Ruggs will be returning to school. I mean, the talent's still there. 32 catches, doesn't have a single drop on the year. Like, he still has a lot going for him, and I think NFL evaluators will be able to see that. But are you going to draft a guy with 700 yards, top 20? DK Metcalf fell all the way to the end of the second round last year with that. So I don't know. We'll see.
Interesting. That is an interesting conversation. One I haven't seen. I think we'll be paying close attention to that trio of Alabama receivers and whether or not all of them declare. Obviously, Judy declares. He's probably a lock for top 10 pick, top 15 pick. But Ruggs and Devontae Smith, I think, do have a decision to make. It's less of a clear-cut thing there. Grant Delpit. He's been landing on this side of the this side of the ball for a while now.
He is, I'm pretty sure, hurt. And actually, after the Alabama game, so he had an ankle injury against Auburn. They had the bye. Comes back against Alabama, doesn't play well, and I think this game, the fact that he played terribly against Ole Miss, was almost good in my eyes, because I'm like, oh, okay, so the Alabama game was hurt as well. These were the 2 lowest games of his entire career, was Alabama and Ole Miss. That doesn't just happen midway through your junior year. You don't have back-to-back terrible games after an ankle injury unless it's actually hampering your play. So it's almost like, oh, okay, that Alabama game, that Ole Miss game, you can almost throw those out. He was definitely hurt these past 2 weeks. That ankle is definitely bothering him here. I just don't.
So good
there's
news.
No way. Yeah, so this is almost a pour one out. Back-to-back lowest grade games of his career, but also, hey, it's probably tape you can just throw out as well. Ooh, that should be a segment. We got to think of a clever name for tape to get something
tape
about
to throw out.
Yeah,
tape
something.
To throw out. Okay, I like that.
But we'll brainstorm later.
I'll workshop it.
Yeah.
I'll workshop it. We're going to move on to our next segment, though, that already has a fantastic name, Rolling Rooks. We're talking about top rookie performances from the weekend. Let's start with Oakland Raiders cornerback who made PFF's Team of the Week, Trayvon Mullen, the former Clemson product, who we thought was a bit of a reach from where they took him. I think it was inside the top 35 or maybe 35th overall in the 2019 NFL Draft. This past week against Cincinnati, which isn't great competition, but allowed 4 receptions from 7 targets for 24 yards and had a pick, a game-sealing pick, and a pass breakup. That would have been a pick.
He had to have, he's going up against Ryan Finley. They owned Ryan Finley at Clemson.
True.
He felt like he was back home. Like, this is why, had struggled. We had said struggled the game before against the Chargers. But this one, I think he had the scouting report. He just was not afraid of getting beaten deep. And this one wasn't afraid of going over the top, sitting on a lot of underneath stuff. Could have had a couple more picks in this game. But, yeah, what I was most impressed with outside of the jumping on those underneath balls, that I think he just knew that Ryan Finley was, rookie quarterback. That was pretty obvious. But I was impressed with his play at the line of scrimmage, his physicality. I thought he was a little overly physical at Clemson, and I wasn't sure if his press ability was going to be able to translate to the NFL. I thought he was patient. I thought when he was in press coverage in this game that he wasn't overly, jumpy, overly, excited to lay that blow. And was sticking with guys off line of scrimmage, was getting good jams in.
Good jams. I mean, there was. I will say this on the one of the opening plays of the game, he does try to come down on a swing pass to the running back and misses a tackle, and he did get called for a DPI in the end zone. But I think he made up for it when they started to play him in man. He started to have some better reps, and then obviously when you have that, when you're looking at the tape here, the game-stealing interception was in cover 3, played up, and then it turned into a scramble drill, chased back, and got the interception. And that other one where he jumped it would have been a pick 6. He just dropped it. I think he played a really good game against NC State product Ryan Finley and the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that's good. That's very good for the Oakland Raiders. I mean, this is a rookie class that had some doubts here and there, but they're getting quality production from Josh Jacobs. Obviously, Jonathan Abram on the IR, but Trayvon Mullen now playing well. And Maxx Crosby, the next guy on this list. 8 total pressures, 4 sacks, 4 hurries, and a forced fumble. He put John Jerry in a blender. It was very bad. And Maxx Crosby, great length, great athleticism coming out of Eastern Michigan, and he's getting better. I see him getting better every week. It looks very good right now. Yeah,
we talked about in last week's pod. We said, like, if you objectively evaluated him and Clelin Ferrell, Maxx Crosby, you'd rather have Maxx Crosby right now. Like, he was 4th round, picked 102 picks later, but you'd rather have Maxx Crosby with what he's done as a rookie, with his size, length, athleticism profile, and the past 2 weeks, 15 pressures over the past 2 weeks. Now, he's going up against John Jerry, who is a career guard who they've thrown at left tackle and has been terrible this year. So, yes, that little caveat, but it's good to be, you should beat up the bad guy. So 4 sacks, 4 more hurries, had a little nice cross chop move on the outside there for a forced fumble. He has been very good for a rookie 4th rounder. I mean, they have something here.
And speaking of you should beat up the bad guys here. Clelin Ferrell didn't record a single pressure against John Jerry in 32 matchups or 11 matchups in this game. That's not great. You'd like to see him beat John Jerry, a career guard. But, I mean, that's been the case for Maxx Crosby and for the past 2 weeks now, going against bad offensive tackles and beating them. But we always say this, and it's kind of a weird phrase, but you got to beat the bad guys first. Beat the guys that suck, and then eventually when you get down the road.
Yeah, you don't have a breakout game against Joe Thomas.
Exactly.
That's not going to be your coming out party. It's going to be against this John Jerry.
I will say this, too. Deion Sanders, if you ball, you get the call. Maxx Crosby got the call. So, I mean, I do love that segment, by the way. I want to get to that level where, like, I'm cool enough to where if somebody balls, I'm the one giving the call, but I don't know if I'll ever get there. Renner, just help me out and try to get there. Let's go Devin Bush. Next guy on the Rolling Rook segment here. Looks very good in this game. I still, when I turn on the tape here with Devin Bush, I think the biggest thing that pops out for me is he's very fast and has really good sideline-to-sideline range. There was a play in this game. It went for a defensive stop. I think it was a screen pass to Kareem Hunt, and it was play action to the right. He flows to the right, sees the screen, bails, and is able to get back there for a defensive stop. Those are rare plays at the linebacker position. It's very hard for a lot of linebackers to commit to one read and then flip to another and make a play.
His range looks about as good as it gets in the NFL right now. Like, that's how fast he plays when he sees something and reacts. He made a couple plays underneath in this one, had 2 coverage stops on his only target, only allowed 3 yards. That was a stop as well. So it was a very good day at the office. And we mentioned earlier in this a few weeks ago about how his grade in man coverage was absurd. His grade in zone coverage was not so much because he just was a tick slow. I think you're seeing the wheels speed up as the season goes on, though, for him.
Moving forward here, let's go ahead and talk a little Deebo Samuel. This guy's been very good for the San Francisco 49ers. I think the only guy that's been better than him as a rookie receiver is probably Terry McLaurin. Deebo Samuel has been playing well, very good after the catch. He's good in contested catch situations, too. Did you see that catch he made?
That was crazy.
That was insane.
And watching it, I was like, oh, my God, Patrick Peterson, no, they have the Cardinals have a cornerback named Kevin Peterson, number 27. Peterson, I was like, oh, shit. How are you going to do that to me?
Yeah. Deebo Samuel went 8 for 9, 134 yards. He is playing very well right now.
Yeah, I mean, he has had a bit of a drop issue. He has 6 drops of 44 catchable.
And the one in this game was wide open. It was not a good drop.
But he only had 11 on 159 in college, so I think it's more – I'm going to trust that larger sample size. I think that'll sort of even out as we see the season go on. But he has had 3 straight games with drops. So that – something to monitor, but yeah, the dude gets open, and he has that he has that running back type bodied where after the catch, he's pretty damn good as well. 12 broken tackles already this year on 38 receptions, which is for the NFL. Like we talked about, CeeDee Lamb was 18 on 44 in college is a crazy rate. 12 on 38 is absurd at the NFL level.
All right, moving forward here. Let's talk Terry McLaurin. I mean, this is another guy against the New York Jets. I mean, had a couple great contested catches, one of which against Jamal Adams, another one deep down the field. Terry McLaurin has been really, really impressive this year. Great speed, now great in contested catch situations. You really can't say enough good things about him.
And he had his biggest play called back in this one. Yeah, had a 6-7 yarder, I think, called back in this game. So he is their number one. Like they needed someone to step up, and I think they found one. Yeah.
Going to David Long, a guy you really liked coming out of Michigan. He played really well in that kind of man-heavy defensive scheme. Didn't play a ton against the Chicago Bears. I saw one key rep, though. Man coverage against Taylor Gabriel at the line of scrimmage. Sticks with him stride for stride in the red zone. And doesn't necessarily force an incompletion, but that ball goes overhead. I think you have to be impressed with what David Long can do in man coverage. And now he should have the opportunity with in Los Angeles.
Yeah, this thing is he has basically not played all season long. Only his second game he's played on defense this year. And I thought he was really impressive. He said that Taylor Gabriel, press coverage against him, that should be where he wins. Against those shorter, quicker guys, he should be able to stick with them. That is what he did so well at Michigan. And on a go route in the end zone, absolutely in his hip pocket, incomplete pass. And then he actually mirrored Allen Robinson coming out of the backfield, was right at the catch point, still caught it, but only a 6-yard gain. So I do think the two targets he saw in that game, he was in very good coverage on both. It was an encouraging start. I mean, obviously, a tiny, tiny sample size. We need to see more. But if he is forced into some action for them a little more, I think they're in good hands.
All right, let's go to the blackout segment. This is where we're talking about some of those bad rookie performances from the weekend. We're going to start. We praised Devin Bush, a guy with a ton of range. Devin White of LSU, he also has a ton of range, but he has been struggling this year. Coming off this game, 11 of 11 targets, 93 yards allowed in coverage. I mean, Devin White's really struggling around. What are you seeing from him?
So this looks like the Devin White we saw a couple years ago, where he just thought he was so athletic at LSU, where he thought he was so athletic that he could, have leeway to make whatever play he wanted, didn't have to sort of play assignment sound football. He had a couple of plays in the flat where he's looking at the quarterback like he sees the route develop. He knows where the receiver is, but he's too busy staring at the quarterback to be close enough to affect the pass. Like he gave up one to Alvin Kamara for a first down and third down, one to I can't remember off the top of my head. It was another receiver in the flat that he ends up just whiffing on and not actually finishing the play. Like he has to. In the NFL, you can't be staring at the quarterback, the linebacker position. You have to play the wide receiver first or the running back first. You have to play the guy you're covering first, and then look to the football second. Find that afterwards. I think he has to just make that change because the athleticism's there. I mean, he could have easily broken up multiple passes in that one, and yes, he allowed 11 catches for 93 yards, and they weren't all bad. He did make some nice plays underneath because they allowed 11 of 11 targets. Doesn't mean they're all bad plays on his part. But I think we're still seeing a guy playing a little too slow and having some of those bad habits from college carry over.
All right, this next guy on the list. Okay, I know he's under the blackout segment, but we might need another segment that is even worse than a blackout, because this isn't just a performance to forget. This is something where you wake up the next day and you did something wrong, and then you find you're in handcuffs. You're like, oops, I'm in prison, or not prison, probably the drunk tank or whatever it may be. Because this was a blackout that you want to forget, but I don't know if he'll ever be able to forget this. Adrian Claiborne and Vic Beasley put Greg Little, left tackle for the Carolina Panthers, rookie, into a body bag. Adrian Claiborne, there's that one bull rush snap. I know you saw it. Yeah. We got to bring it up. Where he was just Greg Little on skates and then some. 14 pressures allowed in this game. This was one of the worst rookie tackle performances in a game.
It was so weird. It just I don't know what his plan was on some of these because he would literally take his set about a foot away from Kyle Allen's drop back. Like he was begging to be bull rushed by Adrian Claiborne. Like he was. It was just he didn't have a plan of attack that I thought was, I don't know. It was ugly. Adrian Claiborne baptizes, rookie tackles, bad tackles, backup tackles. That's his, MO. But it's something. He had a concussion. Maybe he's still not right from that. Yeah, Greg Little. That's why he was out. There was something just off. It was it was just a weird ass performance.
This is an Adrian Claiborne too that openly says he has like one move. There was that time where he beat Chaz Green like to a pulp, and then they interview him like, "Oh man, how'd you have this game?" And it was like, "No, I have one move," and he just literally couldn't stop it. And Greg Little in this game could not stop anything Adrian Claiborne pulled off an inside move against him. Yeah. That's ridiculous. I mean. mean, like you said, I don't think maybe he blacked out the night before. And now he had a blackout performance because it was just not a good game for Greg Little. Another offensive tackle making the blackout segment here, Justin School, who's played very well for the San Francisco 49ers as a fill-in option for Staley, but this game was not his game.
Yeah, I mean, he went up against Chandler Jones, and Chandler Jones,
so
one of the
underrated,
craftiest edge defenders in the NFL. He's going to take a rookie tackle and just take him to task. Like 8 pressures in this one School allowed. He really didn't have a chance. I mean, you're not asking a late round rookie to go one-on-one against Chandler Jones. You're just asking for trouble, and that's what happened. Yep,
absolutely. Chandler Jones, man, again, underrated. I think every time I see him playing well, I'm like, man, he's just so good, but I feel like he just doesn't get talked about enough. I mean, when you compare...
And he's one of the interesting guys who, like, gives, Tyron Smiths of the world, Trent Williams of the world, he'll have a game where he puts them, like I said, a lot of guys don't beat, you don't see them lose a lot. You don't have good games against guys like that. We're talking about the rookies. You don't have your coming out party against guys like that because they don't lose. Tyron Smith will get whooped by Chandler Jones sometimes. Trent Williams will get whooped by Chandler Jones sometimes. He is the guy that can beat up on the good tackles in the NFL.
I will say this, Tyron Smith, and this is a little bit, I guess, a 3-for-1, but against Detroit, Trey Flowers was putting that kid on skates. Tyron Smith really struggled in that game, and Trey Flowers showed a lot for me, in my opinion. He played really well against Tyron Smith this past week. Let's go ahead and chug a prospect, and this is an unfortunate one. I almost want to pour one out just for this situation, but Tua Tagovailoa obviously has the significant hip injury that will keep him for the rest of the season, potentially longer. It is going to be a long road to recovery for him. It's fortunate that on Twitter you're seeing him in the hospital bed playing the ukulele. I mean, that's positive spirits, but this guy, it was a very unfortunate situation for him, but he will finish his Alabama career with a 91.7 PFF passing grade, one of the better college football quarterbacks we've seen in the PFF.
I mean, he never played bad football is the crazy thing. Like, he was always good, even when he fills in the national championship game and wins that. He just has always played good football. And I do think he was every bit a franchise quarterback, every bit a franchise prospect. Now, he's going to have an asterisk next to his name on all our rankings being like, hey, we're not doctors. We have no clue what the prognosis is. We have no clue what's going to happen with that hip. But if you can promise me he's fully healthy, not even by his rookie year, by year 2, promise me he's fully healthy, I'm more than willing to draft him right after Joe Burrow if he is available. We think he's that good. Dive into what I wrote here in his scouting report in the draft guide. Pinpoint accuracy by any measure. He had the highest percentage of perfectly placed passes last year in all of college football. Dynamic runner, capable of expanding the playbook to its fullest extent. Throws with anticipation well. Doesn't have to see a receiver open to throw it to him. This is probably his biggest positive to me, was doesn't drop his eyes under pressure. Unafraid to maneuver tight pockets and step into throws. I think that is one thing you have to have at the college level. Yes, he has a very good offensive line, but even when it wasn't playing well, even when they were getting owned, I think he still is more than willing to, maneuver that pocket and not just break out, not go out the back. That was the biggest thing. Here are his negatives, though. Arm strength on the low end for NFL starters. Pretty much you'll see a noticeable arc on any sort of downfield throw. Playmakers are obviously, they get open. He can trust playmakers because he knows they get open. It's not going to be the same level of talent. We talk about Daniel Jones. It was going to be easier for him at the NFL level because he's going to have guys open more. That is not going to be the case for Tua Tagovailoa. And that goes right into this. He's gun shy, firing into tight windows. Only a 43.3 adjusted completion percentage last year on tight window throws. That was 57th in the nation. And then sometimes he'd have some panicky throws on first reads. He only actually went past his first read 48 times all of 2018. So some interesting sort of pros and cons there. He's not a perfect prospect by any means. He's not Joe Burrow, but I do think he's still obviously the medical, but he's still, if he's going to be healthy, he's still worth a top 2 pick.
A ton of interesting notes in the 2020 NFL Draft Guide. And remember, all Edge and Elite subscribers at PFF do get access to PFF Mike's 2020 NFL Draft Guide. I could contribute to that, too. We got some editors and some great graphics guys that contribute to that as well. But Mike is the man.
Mine. It's the PFF.
It's the PFF Draft Guide. Yeah. But Mike puts a lot of the pros and cons together. He does a really good job with the evaluation here at PFF. Wow, a little pie on the back for you, man. But that's going to do it for the 2-for-1 Drafts podcast with myself and Mike Renner. Remember, you can get us on Spotify, Stitcher, and Apple Podcasts, and live on YouTube Tuesdays and Thursdays. This has been great. Thanks again, Mike. This is going to be us, 2-for-1 Drafts.
Thanks again, Austin.
Hey, thank you, man.